This week's presentation, The Art of Keeping Vigil, presented by Loretta Downs. In our modern world, loved ones often live far apart. The frail among us are moved to long-term care institutions. The unprepared die in hospitals. Consequently, few of us experience the gift of meaningful presence while dying. Come learn, here we are, about the social significance of this sacred ritual and the benefits it provides long after a death. Loretta will share creative ideas for manifesting this final gift of love and compassion, whether near or far away. Loretta Downs has a master's degree in gerontology. She is past president of the Chicago End-of-Life Care Coalition and is a certified senior advisor, advanced care planning facilitator, and death doula. She has been a companion to the dying for 30 years and created the Chrysalis Room concept for nursing homes and hospitals to provide private rooms for loved ones keeping vigil with the dying. She raises monarch butterflies in the summer. She has a fabulous website, which I know she's going to talk about, but it is endoflifeinspirations.com. Please join me in welcoming for the 7th time, Loretta Downs.
Oh, good morning. Thank you all for being here. I mean, what I do is really edgy. And I've said this before, I have friends who don't invite me to dinner. So it's always delightful to come. And if you want me to speak somewhere that I can get to easily, I'm happy to do that. I have an 89-year-old, this is important, I need my clock, my notes, and my highlighter. Okay, here we go. I would like you... This is a gift from Wendy Jane Carroll, whom most of you know. There is truly, this is serious, there is the Order of the Good Death. It's part of the new age of dying and death that we're very fortunate to be living in. I have an 89-year-old friend who's a retired anesthesiologist, and the two of us together are playing with medical cannabis. Another good thing that's happening for all of us. There's really exploration. Anyhow, he's given me a new title, Advocate for the Gentle Exit and the Dignified Departure. And that is exactly what I'm doing out here. You know, I've been supporting people living the end of their lives since my first friend died of AIDS in 1985. And it has been a very unusual life, I have to admit, but it's one that has just enriched my life by being with dying and studying dying and just being able to be present for dying. And one day I have to do it. I have no choice. I mean, we have no choice. It's not like fear of flying, you don't have to take a plane, you have alternatives, or not liking broccoli, you can push it off your plate. So I'm going to take you on a little bit of an adventure to the very end of life. Turnaround, I've been talking about getting ready to die, but this is about supporting those who are dying. How many of you have kept vigil with someone at the end of their lives? Ah, okay. How many of you would say it was a spiritual experience? How many of you would say you are less afraid to die because you shared that experience? Okay. You have just proven to this room that it's nothing to be afraid of. It's something that teaches us how to live, really, being familiar with making friends with death. One of the things here, we have a wonderful process. LCS has a forum called the Post-Life Documents, okay? And it's full of information about, with notarios here, advanced care planning here, which is legal and available in Mexico as well as all of North America now. I encourage you to go pick one up at the office. It's free if you register your information, and this is if you should die here, and that happens. They need to contact whoever you want to be contacted. It's a great forum. If you've already completed it, and it costs 50 pesos to register it with the office. And they have an update form if you've already done it and something's changed, like your doctor or the people to contact in case of. Okay. And El Ojo in February is going to have a special, thank you. Marianne O'Halloran is over there passing out the forms on the way out. She's got 150 of them. Thank you very much, LCS. And again, thank you, Open Circle, for inviting me again. Every year I work very hard to create a new talk, And I've never given this one anywhere before. I think it's something I'm going to do more of because it felt really good to prepare it. And one of my best friends is 99 and a half. And I am likely to be sitting vigil with her during this year. She's wanting to get 100 July 4th, and we have party plans, but we'll see. And secondly, this is videotaped. I'm going to mention books and people and things. Watch the tape and Google those people and get the resources because there's so many. I mean, we're living in a new age of death and dying. I call it from ignorance to bliss. You can Google so much information that's really useful and helpful and peaceful and comfortable. Because how else are we going to learn to do this before we do it? We're all living like a lot of us 30 years past retirement. Oh my goodness, that's like amazing. And if this were 1900, I would say there'd be about 10% of us in this room. We've doubled our life expectancy since then. And we're still not getting ready to die. It's so amazing. We live with chronic illness, and we've got all this getting better, getting better. I have had the families of hospice patients say to me, well, he always got better. We thought he was going to get better this time. And he died 3 days later. The Medicare statistic in the States, about 25% of all Medicare money is spent in the last year of life. A recent study of thousands, it was like 10,000 people who had died, showed that happened, that statistic, that money is there because 9 out of 10 people didn't know they were dying in that last year. Now that troubles me because I think, I know being prepared for anything, I had a conversation with David Bryan last. He said, if you're prepared for anything, it takes the fear out of it. And that's why talking about dying is so essential and so very valuable for us to normalize it because it is a part of life. In fact, when you Google the Dalai Lama, death is a part of life, there is an exquisite 3-minute video in which he says that the meaning of life is to help other people. And if you can't do that, don't harm anyone. Then you will have no regrets at the end of your life. How simple is that? What a philosophy. Help others, do no harm. No regrets, peaceful, good death. Okay. Death is a community thing. Like raising a kid takes a village. Well, death takes a community. We're all connected, and we're very fortunate here because it's easy for us to identify each other. Oh, there's another gray-haired white person walking down the street. Oh, hi, where are you from? What did you come to Open Circle? Really? So we have a very special community of connection, and it's important that we build a whole support system for the end of our lives because a lot of us want to be here. Now, I'm staying longer every year. I can feel myself drawn here. And wherever we go, going back up north or wherever you're from, creating a community around yourself and for others so that you can learn. How are you going to learn to die if you're not sharing the experience with people who are doing it? Look for role models. I think we have plenty of bad death models. Look for the good death models. Look for the people who are preparing and embracing. This new age of dying and death, there's a graduate school program was called Death Over Dinner. They have a book now. It's a TED Talk. It gives you instructions how to invite your friends over to your house and talk about death over dinner. You need a little wine or some beer. It's not a conversation you can have without it. No, you can. But do it. Death cafes. Here in Ajijic, there's a group of volunteers, including me, running cafe mortalities. There'll be one in February, March, and April. Watch for the advertisements. The next one's February 19th. And it's just to sit around tables and talk about dying. No agenda. What do you think? What do you feel? What does your neighbor think? What does she or he feel? Because the more we normalize it, the more it becomes a part of life and not so scary. I mean, we have to do it. That's just the way it goes. And we're at a good time. Now, if you think about birth and death, you draw a line. Just think of a line. Here's birth and here's death. This new movement is very much like the birthing movement that started 50 years ago. Fathers didn't want to be down the hall smoking cigarettes like my dad was when I was born. My mom spent 2 weeks in the hospital. Moms want to be home right after they deliver with their families. They have these beautiful birthing rooms where people participate and watch, and And I have a friend that she's like a sister, and she went into anxiety during labor, and I went over while she was there and just calmed her down. And I thought, oh, this is very interesting. And I'm in the room. There's a bathtub if she wanted to get in it. It was a whole interesting experience. And we need these kinds of places for us. I call them chrysalis rooms. The monarch butterfly is very important to me. How many of you have heard me speak before? Oh, you came back for more. Wow, thank you. I raise them, and they're very special. I use them as a metaphor for transformation. And, the caterpillar eats and poops, and it starts as an egg like everything, or a seed. And then one day it goes into its chrysalis. And that's where the transformation happens. And we do the same thing. The dying process in the natural order, there are all kinds of ways to die. All you have to do is Google the Darwin Awards. Anybody know those? It's like the craziest things people do that result in their deaths. There are lots of ways, but I'm talking about the natural process of sickness and old age and dying, which we can all identify with, because how many of you lost someone you love in the past year? Yeah, in the past 2 years. Yeah. 3. We're all grieving. We live, we breathe. It's a natural process. We live and breathe grief. And that's another reason for us to connect in community, to grieve together, and to listen to each other. The first thing that hospice volunteers learn to do is listen, to just sit and listen, which is an essential part of the vigil process. Now, in this time of the new age of dying, not only do we have death over dinner and death cafes, we have death doulas and death midwives who help coach people through the process. People who want to start in advance and say, how do I go through this? How do I plan my funeral? How do I talk to my families? Their websites, The Conversation Project, has kits to help you talk to your families about what's important to you. And I got to tell you, the people who love you don't want you to ever die, and they may not let you. There is now a ritual, it's considered a ritual for dying in an intensive care unit, so that families can leave saying, we did everything we could to keep her alive. To relieve them of guilt that they didn't do everything. And the only way you can change that for yourself, unless you want to die in an ICU, is to plan ahead. Part of this new age is advanced care planning. You can do it in Mexico. You need a notario. You fill out a form. You name someone to speak for you if you can't speak for yourself. And 75% of us are not speaking at the end of our lives. We are inside doing our internal work. And it can happen at that point that someone who loves you very much says, oh, I don't want her to die. Like my sister said to me, you're my baby sister, I don't want you to ever die. And I said, then you can't be my power of attorney for health care. No. Yeah, it would be too burdensome for her. So I have a good friend, and we talk all the time about this. What's important? I see something in the paper, hear something about somebody. David Bowie, oh, beautiful. Dr. Seuss and David Bowie produced their last piece of art, was released the day before they died. How's that? Was it a planned death? I don't know. In this world, we do have medical aid in dying that's legal in 7 states and the District of Columbia, where a person who is validly dying can request medication to die. And that's a whole different vigil process, which I'll talk about. But it's complicated. There are legal protections, so there's no abuse. And it takes about a month to get the drugs. And unless you have an insurance program that pays for it, because Medicare won't, it can cost $3,000 to $5,000 depending on the state you're in. The whole country of Canada has legalized medical aid in dying. Again, sensible. How many of you want the right to choose the timing of your death when you're at the end of your life? Okay, sign up for any organization that is offering you guidance and help with this. Volunteer to talk in your communities. We need the choice, whether or not we take it. In Oregon, where they keep incredibly careful records, everybody's keeping records now, but the states and Canada, because there's opposition to this, a lot of opposition. It's between me and God. Well, I don't think God meant for us to suffer. Really? And if I choose not to, I want to have a choice. It's important. So sign up for the organizations. There's Death with Dignity Canada, Compassion and Choices in the States, the Death with Dignity. Just look, Google Death with Dignity and sign up. We have to raise our voices. Because right now, every single day, 10,000 Americans and 9,000 Canadians turn 65. I'm going to be 70 next. I'm 69 now. What's that? Little kids like to go, I'll be 5 next year. We got to lie. You don't want. Yes. So I've never been closer to the end of my life. And my life's never been better. Look at this. I live in Chicago. It's 10 degrees today. Not to mention traffic, even without a gas pump. It's everywhere. They're building all around my neighborhood. I can't find parking. We're all here because we've made choices to leave home, even for a little while, explore another world, take the adventure. What would happen if we added to our bucket lists, die wise and die well? What would happen to the rest of your life if that were something you were making a goal? Die wise and die well, huh? Be ready today instead of the day before you die. It'll change all of your relationships. I see this all the time. There is a difference between dying hard and dying gently, and it's really our choice. Advanced care planning is so important to that, and that's something we can all do. Now, we have medical schools, believe this or not, and nursing schools are just beginning to teach courses on dying. You want to look for young doctors, really, and make younger friends. You sit in Vigil, you need some of those people. The conversation, there's Talk Death, there are TED Talks, TEDx Talks. I have one on my website. Books, videos, there's some beautiful things coming out. And now we're doing celebrations of life. In the 50s or 60s, that was just not. You were going to wakes for 4 nights. Remember those days? Right, families were just so worn out from the whole thing. People were dying in hospitals. Right now, okay, here's a question. There are 3 places basically to die. At home, in the hospital, in a nursing home, hospice. How many of you want to die at home? Ooh la la, okay. It's okay wherever you want to go. This is your life all the way to the end. That's why I'm out here. You need to talk about this. What do you want people to do? How many of you want to die in a nursing home? Yeah, right, okay, well, there's a reason to be doing some talking. And how many of you want to die in a hospital? Some people do. It's okay. This is really for us to learn. I don't. At home. Well, 75% of us are dying in institutions, and 25% of us are dying at home, which includes assisted living now, because people have their own apartments. We got to shift that stat. More people are dying in hospice care, but about 1/3 of us die within a week of saying, okay, or the doctor saying there's nothing more we can do. That turning point, we want to push that up a little bit. You don't want to wait until you can't do the work. Dying is a spiritual experience with medical implications. You want to do some work before you get there, and play hard while you can. My hip's been bothering me. I think it's going to affect some of my hard play. But embracing it. The turning points, lots of turning points, which is what initiates the vigil process. And what is vigil? It's waiting, it's watching. That's all it is. Used to have the little widow's spot on top of houses by the seashore, and they would keep vigil watching for the ships to come back in. And vigil can be a long time. It can be 2 weeks. It can be a day. It can happen after death for a few hours. It's being a watcher. And it's interesting. Someone said, what do I wear? I said, well, wear something comfortable because you might want to climb in bed with the person you're visiting. So what's the alert for vigil keeping? Usually a phone call. Mom stopped eating. Get on a plane. Get here. Or the doctor said there's nothing more we can do. We have to call hospice. Get here. Or Mom just said she's done. She doesn't want to eat and drink anymore. Or George is he's done with chemo. Or Thich Nhat Hanh, the beautiful Buddhist who has taught the world what mindfulness is 92. He had a stroke over 2 years ago, and he has just gone back to Vietnam, from which he was exiled for his good work, and he's refused any more treatment. We're hearing that more and more. Barbara Bush said she's refused any more treatment, but she died 2 days later. John McCain refused treatment. He died a day later. We need to up that. You know, I want to hear somebody's in hospice so that I can set up a vigil far away. When you're near and you hear these things, you also have to know, am I the person to go there? So if you'd been preparing when you get close to death, you could be saying, I don't want Aunt Martha here while I'm dying. Don't let her in the house. She talks too much. Or be sure whatever you do, get my sister here. I don't want to miss this time. I have something to say to her. No, there are 4 things we have to say to each other before we say goodbye. You know them all. You say them all the time, but usually not in the same combination or for the same reason. I love you. Huh? How's that? I'm sorry. Hard one to do. Sometimes you have to write a letter about that, or sometimes you have to say, I'm not sorry, what I did was okay, and that person needs to just deal with it. Or you can say, I am sorry, let it go. And I forgive you for being such a whatever to me. I forgive you. I forgive you for not helping me take care of Mom while she was dying. I forgive you for marrying the wrong person. I forgive you for when we were 12 years old and you said blah, blah, blah. I love you. I forgive you. Forgive me, and thank you for being in my life. Practice that. Don't wait until you're sitting at somebody's bedside or somebody's sitting at your bedside. Those are so easy to say. It's a practice, and you know it's transformative, all that. And in forgiveness, the first person you have to forgive is yourself. You just have to. Tomorrow morning, I want you to look in the mirror like you do every morning and say, I forgive you. Promise me that. Look at yourself straight in the eye and I forgive you. And say, I did the best I could at the time. And now I know it wasn't so good. And I'll do better. Let it go. You can't carry all that stuff through the rest of your life. You don't have enough time. Even if you do have a lot of time, it won't be enough. Okay? You know, there's struggle and there's suffering at the end of life. And we can do a lot of things to help that. First of all, again, preparation and having conversations with the people you love helps the struggle. And suffering has many names. There's certainly physical suffering, but now we have palliative care. Oh my God, what does that mean? Drugs. Palliative care is a medical specialty. It's available in Mexico, but they're just training doctors here. A lot of the doctors do really good end-of-life compassionate care because it's been such a family process, but we don't have really a formalized palliative care in Mexico, and there's really one hospice in the whole state in Guadalajara, but Madre, who runs the hospice, a Catholic nun, young Catholic nun, is doing a lot to educate the doctors here about palliative care, and certainly in the States and Canada, it's a big thing. And palliative care is a new word. It's only been certified as a medical specialty since 2009, 10 years ago. So it involves pain and symptom management, which is something we all need. A lot of us have discomfort at the end of life. No, I mean, like for a month before people start knowing something's different, you've been living in your body for a while. Oh, this isn't quite right. Get more tired, want to rest more, grow inward a little bit, ponder life, and then invite people to come and stay with you and visit. Select group of people, and it gets more select as days go by. So there are two kinds. A lot of you have done this. There's the family who's there all the time. It's exhausting. Frank Ostaseski, in his recent book, The 5 Invitations, gives us this advice. He says, what death will teach us about living well is the book, and it's a beautiful book. Okay? Don't wait. You get that call, don't wait. When my husband was dying my ex-husband was dying in California, I got a call, and I waited. I didn't know what to do. He wanted me there, and I didn't know what to do. And by the time, I hadn't even decided, it was like 2 days, and he died. And I promised myself no one who wants me there when they're dying will not have me there. And I've kept that promise. Sometimes I've left the room first. You know, that's interesting. I'm sure you've experienced this when the person that you were hoping to hold their hands at the moment of breath died after you left the room. Huh? Yeah, right. They didn't want you there. You gave them plenty of time to die when you were there holding their hands. Said, oh, I don't want to watch the crying. I don't want to watch the sadness. I'll wait. You know, Tuesdays with Maury, great little book. His family was all there, and they decided to have coffee in the kitchen. That's when he left. My dad, I spent the night, left, went to work, got a call in the parking lot. My secretary called me, run to the hospital, your dad just died. I was like, what? It took me 15 years to stop feeling guilty, till I read enough and realized he just didn't want to watch me be so sad. So let it go if you feel you did the best you could at that point in time. You know, there are things in keeping vigil that it helps if you know in advance. Do people want flowers? I love those big white lilies that, fill the room. And the other day, a friend of mine walked into my house and went, oh, God, what is that? Too much smell for her. So be careful. Before you go to the door, ask what can I bring you? I don't want to come empty-handed. Let him tell you. You can always bring a bottle of something, bubble bath, wine, whiskey. You know, the first hospice was started in England by Cicely Saunders, and her comfort cart was Scotch whiskey, cigarettes, 1967, cigarettes, and candy. I like that. That's good palliative care, I think, in my book. Last year, I gave a talk on the 5 wishes, which is an end-of-life form. Google it. It's great, and it's a legal power of attorney for health care in the states, but we do recommend you use your state's form. But the 3rd and the 4th wishes are so incredible. This is what vigil keeping is about. How comfortable do you want to be? Do you want to be touched? Do you want to be massaged? Do you want music? What kind of music? You know, I play classical. I have friends who like bluegrass. Not in my house. How much time do you want to spend? Do you want poetry read? Do you want praying? Do you want the rosary? My mother, I said so many rosaries when my mother was dying, like more than I had in 40 years. Really, that vigil. And you know who you want, and to show up at the door of a place where you know someone's dying is not easy. It's scary. You don't know what to do. You're asking, what am I going to do? I'm going to tell you what you're going to do. Nothing. You bring your whole self to the experience. You open to whatever happens and push away nothing. Just take it in. You watch. Bring a book. Bring an empty journal you can write in some wonderful story about the person you're visiting. Leave it for the family to keep filling in. Bring pictures. I was keeping vigil with a woman who'd been in the nursing home where my mom was living for many years, and her daughter visited 5 days a week to floss and brush her mother's teeth. And her mother she'd fallen off a mountain, basically, and had brain injury, and she was on a feeding tube and she lived for a while, but this daughter was so devoted. And at the end of her life, we're in this beautiful chrysalis space, and the daughter had brought photos. She was putting together the funeral booklets, and I was sitting on one side of the bed, and she would hand me the picture and tell the story in the picture, and then I would put the picture on her mother's blankets, and by the end, her mother was covered in her life in photos, and she had heard us tell those stories. That's what you do keeping vigil. You'd have normal conversation with the families and tell people how you feel. Tell their stories. The writer Alan Cohn said we die twice. The first time when our heart stops, and the second time when people stop telling our stories. That is so important to keep the stories coming. So the 5 wishes, how comfortable do you want to be? How do you want people to treat you? Do you want to be clean? Do you want to be cared for with kindness and love? And what you want your loved ones to know after you die. It's a beautiful document. It's worth the $5 it costs to get it online or in the mail. Okay. So sitting vigil is about being present. That's all. It's just being present and not feeling you have to fix anything or do anything. It's companioning the caregivers who are there. It's helping them. It's serving. There's a difference between fixing, helping, and serving. Fixing, there's something broken, and there's nothing broken when a person's dying. Helping indicates a little bit lessness in a person. Oh, I'm helping you, I'm a little better, but then you need to help me when I need help. But serving is just bringing yourself and offering whatever you have to give. And that's all a person who's leaving this life needs. Just your presence, your thoughts. And if you're not there where they need you, what do? How many of you have loved ones that you know are going to die when you're away? Likely to. But yeah, how do we keep, or maybe you're not on that A list of people that are invited to vigil. What do? You set up a space, a sacred space in your own home. You set up a space with the things that all rituals through history have involved. Fire, a candle, flowers, and music. All rituals through history, through cultures. Make a space in your home and set up a candle. These battery-operated candles are great. Vigil candles are wonderful. Put some special artifacts. If you're religious, put a religious thing, a cross, or I have a butterfly on my windowsill. I make a little windowsill space, put a vigil, a votive candle, a photo of the person, with or without you, and put this in a space where you're passing all day long, where you have time to pay attention, to allow yourself to be aware that you're losing someone you love, someone who made an impact in your life, and someone whose absence is going to change it in some way, someone who you love, because that's what this is all about. It's about expressing love for each other. It is truly the greatest act of love we do at the end of a person's life is to keep them in mind and keep them knowing that we're thinking about them. Look at emails. Send emails with no expectation of reply to the people that could read them to your friend, your whomever. How many of you have kids that live in different states than you do? Airplane rides away. Yeah. The Modern Family, or different countries. How many of you have kids in different countries? The Modern Family. Sometimes they can't get there in time. And that's hard on them. Think of how many of you have tried to get to somebody before they died and you didn't. That's why all these conversations before are so important. I'm not well. You say, I'm not well, and this is going to have an end to it. Let's talk about it. Let's take the scare out of it. Let's plan ahead. Let's make it meaningful and comfortable and satisfying. So we're not left with this, re-enhancing all the fears. There's a story in Deuteronomy about the divine kiss. Anyone hear it? I don't know why we haven't heard this story. It's in the book. It talks about Moses wanting to see the promised land, and God said, you can't. After all this work, you're too old, you can't see the promised land. But he took him up. You can't go there, but I'll take you up and let you see it from across. So they climb up the mountain, and Moses saw the promised land that he had worked so long to get to, and God kissed him and took away his breath, and he died. The idea of God kissing me to take away my breath and allowing me to die is a pretty beautiful vision. I was kissed and got breath at birth. We all were. Whether or not you believe in God, you got breath at birth and you're going to give it back at death. And you can do it peacefully. And finish your life well and die wise. I love that story. My sister, I planned to keep vigil with my sister was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer a year and a half ago. And that's not a good one, stage 4. So she knew, the doctor said 6 to 12 months, and we were prepared. And as time went on, the chemotherapy was starting to get to her, and she hit a turning point, and but she was really prepared. She's been listening to me for 15 years. I'm very proud of her. And I had this whole vigil plan in my head. I was going to decorate her room, and I was going to, have the music she likes and play videos, and I had this whole plan. And we figured we had till about Christmas. Well, July 26th, she was visiting a nursing home where we visit often, and she fell, fractured her hip, wound up in the hospital, and they said she's 83. And she said, the doctor said, well, this is a fracture, we can't do anything, we'll send you to a nursing home rehab. And I said, oh, that nursing home is, we know everybody there, you'll go there. We were in the emergency room together, and they were just giving her some morphine, and she said, here, take my wallet and go home. I called her at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I said, I'm coming, can you need anything? She said, oh, bring my glasses. So I get ready to do that, and an hour later, her daughter called and said, the doctor just called and said, Mom has no pulse. I zoomed to the hospital. I'm the first person there, thank goodness. And the door says, see the nurse. I walk in, and they had not done anything to change my sister's appearance. She's up, lights all over, pole with the bags on it, garbage on the floor, and she's splayed in the bed. And I closed the door, and the nurse caught me, and I said, how could you let anyone walk in on that? You need to make her look like she's sleeping. If her son had come, he would have been punching holes in the walls to see her like that. And thankfully, she had all of her makeup on from the day before, because she has no eyebrows. That 1950s thing the girls were doing. And she had all her makeup on, and her hair was still all done. She looked really fabulous. But she deprived me of that vigil. I actually was angry. I wanted to be holding her hand when she died. She didn't let me do that. Some people just want to do it their way. She didn't want to go to a nursing home. And I know we have some control over the timing that we leave our bodies. We do. And the more you're ready, the easier it is to get out and avoid some of the struggle and the suffering that you can create for yourself. So, all that, I talk about the monarch butterflies, and out of the chrysalis, we all have a chrysalis. We have that stage where it looks like nothing is going on, but the transformation is taking place in incredible ways. And that happens for us too. We go inside within. Our body is trying to retire. It wants to stop working. We have to let it do that. We have to decide, we have to make choices when to stop treatments on things, when to stop dialysis, when to just embrace the transformation and look at it as kind of an adventure. Okay? So the monarchs emerge from the chrysalis, and they take a little while to dry out before they fly. But I really think of that moment when it takes its first flight as the same thing as the moment of death. We leave our bodies, and I don't know where we go. We can debate that for a week. Nobody knows. It's all conjecture. But the butterfly takes off in its new form, and that's what happens to all of us. That line I talked about, I want you to go home tonight and draw that line with your birth on one side and your death on another, and make a line where you are today, where you think you are today. It's actually a time management exercise that I just saved you $600 from going to a Franklin Covey course. Where are you today? Well, plan for tomorrow and look at how you want to live the rest of your life, knowing that it's got an end to it. And that end could be, I could get hit by a burro on my way out the door. Oh, God, I almost had death by Chipotle last week. I was like, oh, no, I'm going to die. Yeah. So think about that, and I want to leave you with a couple thoughts. Steve Jobs, the guy who invented the Apple computer, you all know him, died at 56, and he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2004. He lived 7 years with all the money in the world, couldn't keep him from dying, took all kinds of different treatments, really, and he kept working off and on during that time. But his sister wrote, when he was laying dying, his family was there. He looked at his sister, he looked at all of his children, and he looked at his partner of many years, Lorene, and then he looked past them and repeated the words, oh, wow, oh, wow, oh, wow. Guy invented Apple computer, I believe him. I believe there is an oh wow, and I want you to think about adding to your bucket list. I want to die wise and die well. Won't be so scary if you're working on it. You know, this is your life. Give it a good ending. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
people,
you.
for those of you that want to ask a question, please raise your hand. A mic will be brought to you. Please stand up, hold the mic close to your mouth, sort of like, and the things will come down. Ask a question, please. Anybody want to ask a question?
And do look at my website. Lots of links to things.
Yeah, it's a great website. Lots of links. Okay,
Thank you.
right here, David, right here.
Actually, I have not a question, but I used to do hospice work, and my friends had had NDEs, near-death experiences.
Yes.
And I said, what did it feel like? And their words were, it was like being cradled in the arms of love.
Yeah. Yeah, people will talk at the, as they're dying often. Open the door, open the window. I see people who've died before. It's so mysterious. That's one of the reasons we're afraid. It's just this great mystery. Miracle.
Anybody else have a question? You feel full? Full up? Right here.
I wonder if you might be able to give me some advice. My mom passed away, and I was there with my 7 siblings. And my youngest sister had been the primary caregiver.
Could you put
for
Mike a little
years.
closer?
Okay,
Thank
sorry.
you.
She was the primary caregiver for years, and from what you say, my mom decided to pass away in my arms. And after she did, I woke everybody in the family because it happened in the middle of the night. And then I went to my room and cried myself to sleep. And my mother came to me. And she stroked my arm to comfort me. And she said, I want you to tell your brothers and sisters that I'm at peace, I'm no longer in pain, and I'm with God. It was the best experience of my life. But my question is this. My youngest sister, who took care of her for 3 years, was very resentful that she didn't come to her. And I don't know what I could do to help her feel less pain about that.
Yeah, the guilt. I mean, this whole thing about letting go and feeling guilt is, a lot of us carry guilt after someone dies for that very reason. You didn't do enough. I would tell her what I just said. Mom saw you work so hard for her for so long, and she did not want to see you grieve the minute she died. She did not want to subject you to that. It was an act of love that she didn't die in your presence. Yeah. I mean, we do, for some reason, your being there was the place that she felt easiest to let go. It would maybe been really hard on your sister. Yeah.
Anybody else? Over here.
Yeah.
Raise your hand again so you can see.
That's really the being there. Sometimes it's like this fantasy like I had for my sister, I want to be there. And it's important to process that. Why is it so important to be there? And nobody wants to die alone. That's basically true. But it doesn't mean they don't want you in another room.
What is your thoughts about saying goodbye to a person before they have died, knowing that you may never get a chance to be there with them?
Oh, got to do it. The thing of keeping vigil, and like this, your sister wasn't even in the room. Some of us are only temporary visitors. We come because we're close to that person, but we're not immediate. We're not that A-list for the last few days. And you do have to walk out and say goodbye, or visiting somebody in the hospital who's really sick and you don't know where they're going, even. It's important. And, if you attach goodbye, I love you, and I thank you in the same sentence, it feels really good on both ends, because love comes with gratitude. And gratitude is something to be working on all the time with practice. I mean, practicing gratitude for what we have and not focusing on what we're losing enriches our lives incredibly. Yeah, thank you, I love you, goodbye. We had a party for my mom at the nursing home, and her whole remaining family came. And I have take pictures during this process too. because you'll treasure them one day. There's some beautiful things that happen between loved ones as someone's dying. I mean, they're not easy to look at sometimes, but later on you go, oh my God, that was such a miraculous experience in a moment. Anyhow, my mom had to say goodbye to her siblings and their spouses, and you could see the emotion that was in it. But had we not had that party, it would have been so much harder on everybody not to be able to say goodbye to her.
Okay.
I have a question before you leave. Again, that paper that you showed in the beginning, that was
The post-life
the
document?
post-life.
Yes,
Okay. There is one that you said that you get on the internet,
that's the 5 wishes.
the 5 wishes. That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
And that you get on the internet, but
Yes, Google 5 wishes,
Uh-huh.
and it'll come up. They've sold millions of these,
but
millions.
here, can we have them printed out then?
You can order it online and then download it.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
So they don't mail it to you. It's just a wonderful preparation because you don't think about, well, yeah, do I want to be touched? I did a workshop for 10 nuns and 10 old nuns, and I reading through the 5 wishes, and one of them said, oh, I don't want to be touched. And the other one said, oh, I want to be. So you need to have these conversations. Yes, somebody else?
I think we had one over, yeah.
Thank you.
Mike's coming around.
I always so look forward to this. It's just, I'm so grateful to be able to do this. And I like this, I'm going to do this talk more. Anybody wants, church. Our churches are not helping us prepare for death. We need to be if you go to a church, you tell them they need to start grief groups and end-of-life groups. Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for your talk today, and every word that you say is so relevant to all of us. As a nurse, we're taught discharge planning begins the day someone is admitted, and I always thought that kind of fit with our whole death and dying too, that we should start preparing for that at any age. We don't have to be elderly, we don't have to be mature. I talked to my son very frankly about it from wee little, having gone to funerals and whatnot. But I wanted to stress too the importance of having watched so many patients die with family members and attendants that were in conflict. And the importance of those 5 wishes and advance directives is a gift to your family members and your loved ones, that they're not left guessing, well, I don't know what he wanted, or he wanted this, or what you want. It is about the person who's dying. So make sure you let your family members know and your loved ones, and get it written legally with the notario, so folks can concentrate on giving you that love and not arguing about how to let you go.
Good advice. Family, like I said, they don't want to let you die, and terrible things. Families are destroyed over fights over end of life. You tortured mom, you didn't, we didn't do enough. So yes, talk. Go on, just Google. Google, get information, give yourself a little goal every week, maybe read one article or one little thing, buy a book. Some great books out there. Anybody else?
Nope. That's
Lunchtime. Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Loretta.
Live, be well. What is that thing from Live Long, Be Well? Play hard. I like the play hard part. Love the play
Go
hard
ahead,
part.
you can turn on your cell phones, you fools. See you next week. Please stack your chairs. Pick up your coffee cups, shawls, watches, handbags, gum wrappers. Take your conversation outside, please.